This little PC that looks like an infrastructure project built by engineers with a wild PCP addiction is the cheapest AM5 gaming PC I could build using parts of AliExpress. And wow, did this not go well. I think it just crashed again. Oh, please. But before we delve into my suffering, today's video is sponsored by DeepCool's new CH160 case, a mini-ITX enclosure with an insatiable appetite for gratuitously sized air coolers, a rare talent in this space. Aside from big air coolers, thick graphics cards are also welcome. It also comes with a handle, so if you're in the market for a high airflow ITX case with great temperatures while gaming at an affordable price, check out the DeepCool CH160 with the link in the video description. Thank you DeepCool for sponsoring today's video. Now, one of my favorite things to do with this kind of packaging is guess the parcel. Just figure out what's inside based on its grotesque exterior. Because these sellers package stuff real weirdly. This box, for example, looks CPU shaped. But then what is this cowpat looking package? Because if you touch it and feel it, it feels a lot like the inner packaging of a CPU box. But then what is this? Is this the cooler? Yeah, I guess the best way to find out is open it up, so let's see if this CPU bet pays off. No, it isn't. This is an NVMe drive in a tiny little box. And this poorly box-endowed NVMe drive cost 44 Canadian dollars for 250 gigs. So does that mean that there is a CPU living in here? This is definitely a CPU. Although it's not packaged in the way I was expecting. Okay, my first instinct was correct, and this is a fascinating AM5 CPU, a Ryzen 5 7500F. AMD clearly continuing ripping off Intel branding, but this is a CPU that's actually not available in the Western market, and it's like a budget 6-core AM5 chip. And as far as I can tell, the main differences between it and a 7600 is a slightly lower boost frequency and that it has no iGPU, which makes the F plagiarism even funnier. And it cost 170 CAD including shipping, which is quite a bit cheaper than the 7600, but you are getting it shipped in a little bit of plastic they found in a bin and with no cooler. This one feels and sounds very air coolery. The ICE 200 Pro. This was the cheapest AM5 compatible CPU cooler I could find, which cost a whopping 10 Canadian dollars including shipping. And it comes with 2 whole heat pipes. This one's easy, it's obviously RAM. Oh, we got some RAM inspired by spinners on a 90s lowrider. And it's about as performance-oriented as said lowrider, which cost me 98 Canadian dollars, which considering that it's 16 gigs of peasant DDR5, that's pretty expensive. This box feels power supply-y, and by power supply-y, I mean low-yield dirty bomb, because that's the only kind of power supply you get for no money off of AliExpress. Oh yeah. Birth that fake 600 watt power supply. Oh, it comes with an RGB fan, so never mind, this thing is gonna be a beast. There's some terrifying frat bro tattoo on the side. Whoa, it's equipped with a 6+ 2-pin VGA card port. Wow. But despite these uber premium features, I got it for a steal at just 40 Canadian dollars. Oh, a gigabyte motherboard, so we have a new top fire hazard contender. And our Pyro Catalyst board cost 130 Canadian dollars, which for a B650 board is actually very cheap. This last one's either a graphics card or a flotation device. Those are looking like some very Nvidia-y colors in there, which... Did I buy the right graphics card? Ugh. Yeah, no, I've never been wronged by a graphics card box that says gaming graphics card on the front, and that's basically all the information it gives you. Although it is real comforting to note that Mills graphics cards are equipped with an upgraded power solution, great cooling system, and excellent connectivity. And our confidence-inspiring mystery GPU came in at 59 Canadian dollars. But that price is a little bit of a debate, because shipping cost more than the GPU itself, bringing up the total to 132 Canadian dollars. And then finally, we just have the case left, which is by good old Golden Field, a brand we know well on the channel. But we'll have a closer look at the case once we build it. Which brings the total cost of our cheapest AM5 build to 815 Canadian dollars, which includes the obscene shipping on a couple of our components. But with that, let's cobble our weirdly advanced AliExpress abomination together. Now, the first wildly exciting thing about this motherboard is, despite costing about as much as a Big Mac, we still get an integrated rear I/O shield, something that's I'm so excited about. Said I/O's not great, no USB-C, but at least we get Wi-Fi. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about the motherboard, other than we do only have 2 memory slots, which should make this very good at overclocking. Also, no CMOS battery. Next, we gotta drop our Natak Shadow RGB in, which, I don't know, surely Shadow and RGB is mutually exclusive. Oh, look at that chrome. You know what they say, plastic chrome is the classiest material. I mean, it matches the plain metal aesthetic on the motherboard, which at this price point is just a happy coincidence. Another nice thing about this Gigabyte motherboard is that it doesn't have those stupid seesaw half RAM clips. This is way better. This is just such funny packaging for an SSD. Ooh, PCIe Gen 3, fancy. Our dollar menu cooler is next. I'm just so excited to see how this thing handles an AM5 CPU. Now first we get our Viking sachet of thermal paste. Now, when it comes to mounting the actual cooler, there aren't any instructions, so I'm just gonna assume that I stick it down on here, and then, yeah, there we go, that's mounted. Now again, weirdly, all of this stuff is so coordinated. This was not on purpose. I just bought the cheapest of everything, but somehow it's kind of working aesthetically. And before I forget, let me just quickly pop a CMOS battery in here so I don't spend hours suffering trying to get the PC working later. Oh, it's also silver. How does all of it match? I don't understand. Apparently, past Dawid is way better at shopping on AliExpress than I anticipated. I mean, I guess the reason it all matches is because it's just cheaper not to paint stuff. But that's a pretty cool looking case. I like that the chrome handles matches our RAM, and there does seem to be a little bit of front ventilation, which is cool. This like bare steel look, it's almost Apple-y. And the power button. Not meaning to sound extremely pretentious, but that's a little unrefined for my liking. But before we start opening this stuff up and dropping things in, we need to get our power supply unpackaged. Oh, I just realized this is the same brand as the air cooler. So I guess this is the power supply equivalent of that air cooler, which really puts into perspective how terrible this power supply is gonna be. Oh yeah, there's just such a satisfying tinny hollow feeling to these power supplies, which just screams quality. But at least they weren't lying about the RGB fan, I think. It looks like it'll light up. And considering where the power supply sits in the case, we're gonna get to see it as well. Unfortunately, we will also be seeing this atrocity of power supply cables. No way, they included an installation guide for the power supply, but not their CPU cooler. Oh, I just noticed another concerning thing. It just says 220 volt on it. Everywhere I looked, the power supply just had 200 volt compatibility listed, so I had to make another plan. Okay, you know what? I'm still gonna install it. I bought a step-up transformer, so it should be fine, I guess. Wow, that is really dumb, because like you see, we've got this fan pulling air from the hot system inside, and the back of the power supply blocks all of the front ventilation. This cable's also the wrong length, so it's like super in the way of the motherboard, but you know, that's fine. Okay, so now we just need to somehow figure out the cable management in here, which may not take too long because we don't have a whole lot of options. Luckily, we get some of the most ghetto looking zip ties. Now, the cable management, if you can call it that, didn't go too terribly. I mean, there's still some clumps going on, but we could hide a bunch of the runs behind the motherboard, which helps. The same goes for like the front panel connectors and stuff. So it doesn't look that awful, I think. Now, unfortunately, accessory-wise, we didn't get any super dodgy Molex to PCIe power adapters, which is very disappointing. Wild plastic aside, this was the cheapest AMD graphics card I could get, and I know that because it said cheapest in the name. But it's kind of crazy because this is an RX 580, which is quite a powerful graphics card. Now again, the purchase price was deceptive because the shipping more than doubled that price, and when it comes to I/O, it looks like it's even gonna be the real thing, which is very exciting. And we even get some heat pipes in our great cooling system. And just like that, our AM5 AliExpress build was done. So now all I had to do was wait till the next day for my step-up transformer to arrive. And then suffering. So this is the step-up transformer I bought. It was like 90 Canadian dollars, and apparently this is a 1500 watt variant, very fancy. And because of this, we can now use a 230 volt output. So I've got everything plugged in. Let's and then we turn this on, and that's a promising start. Oh, I just realized I haven't plugged anything else into it yet. Wait, give me a second. Okay, so I've plugged everything in. We've restarted the system, so hopefully we get a video out. We very much did not get a signal out, even after the system rebooted itself. And I tried every output on the back of the graphics card. Okay, well, we're not getting a signal out of it. That's very fun. And because the motherboard doesn't have postcodes, I have no idea what's wrong with it. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably that graphics card, because it was suspiciously cheap. So I'm gonna swap something else in there and see if we get a signal out then. But unfortunately, swapping in a known working RX 580 still didn't give us a signal out. I then decided to swap out the War Crimes power supply, which also didn't help. Okay, so after a while of tinkering, we know now that it's not the power supply, because this power supply doesn't work either, and it's not the graphics card. So I guess next I'm gonna try the RAM. And once I dropped some trusty Patriot DDR5 in there, the system worked. For now. Look at that, we're getting a signal out with our Patriot Viper RAM in there. So, apparently Chrome RAM is not a good idea. I then installed some Windows and graphics card drivers, which went flawlessly. But when I tried to launch CS2, my hope was again shattered. Hey, yes, and we've even got an overlay. What's happening? What was happening was the PC crashed. No. and when I restarted, I don't know man, this PC's on drugs. It seemed like the reason the system crashed was because the graphics card drivers corrupted. The version of your AMD software is not compatible with your graphics driver. How is my driver not compatible with my driver? That doesn't even make sense. I then DDU wiped and reinstalled my drivers, but when I tried launching CSGO, the same thing happened again. I think it just crashed again. Oh, please. I then tried a different version of the graphics driver which did the same thing. There's suddenly no readings from the GPU. No matter what I did, with every fresh driver install, after just a couple seconds of load on the GPU, the driver would corrupt and the system would crash. I then swapped the AliExpress graphics card out for the RX 580 I bought from Wish I looked at a couple of videos ago. And after a quick driver install, it worked! It's running! Finally, we have lost 2 components in the meantime, but with different RAM and a different graphics card in here, well, it's the same kind of graphics card, but it's not the same graphics card, we're actually getting quite a lot of frame rate playing CS2. It's quite stuttery, but that is an issue that CS2 does seem to have sometimes, even with the bots, although that is particularly bad. This is a 1080p low, I'm not sure if I said, with 15% utilization on our 5 GHz Ryzen 5. Temperatures are great with that tiny little cooler. Oh, I actually need to put the side panel back on. Now moving over to Cyberpunk at 1080p low settings, we're getting 60 frames per second. Honestly, it scales down pretty well visually. It doesn't look terrible, but having said that, now that we have higher utilization on our CPU, the temperature has quickly gone way higher. 85°C with just 37-ish% utilization. So it's not going great, but much better than I thought it was gonna go with that $10 cooler. I was expecting like a category 5 house fire with that thing. Doom Eternal at 1080p medium settings on paper is running very well, about 90 frames per second. But despite that high frame rate, it doesn't feel or look particularly great. I'm not entirely sure why that's happening. Generally, the system ran the crap out of esports titles at 1080p, as you'd expect from a system with an RX 580 in it, a graphics card that's maybe not quite well endowed enough to keep up with that AM5 CPU. Speaking of CPU, I did run Cinebench R20 on the 7500F, and it is a reasonable amount slower than my 7600X, but there's also a pretty big price gap between the two CPUs. Also, when looking at Crystal Disk Mark, that SSD's performance isn't a complete abomination for what it is. Which just leaves one last mystery. What's wrong with our RX 580? Well, frankly, I have no idea what's wrong with it. I took the cooler off and it looks RX 580 to me. I even launched GPU Z and it also seems to think that it's just an RX 580. So my best guess at this point is that there isn't much of a mystery here and it's just a dying GPU. Which means we had to drag our system across the finish line with 2 dead components in it. Ugh, that's not great. Now, if you do want to see an all AM5 system with a much higher rate of component survival, check out the video that will be suggested in a second, and also subscribe to the channel while you're there, and yeah, that brings me to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.